Welcome to A State of Mind. This is Julian Royce. Thank you so much for tuning in. I have a great episode today. First, a few announcements and some housekeeping and updates. This is going to be the first episode of a season 3 of A State of Mind podcast. And I suppose as the creator of the podcast, I just get to determine that. But here we are in 2022, a new year. And I have a lot of great episodes coming up in the near future for all of you. And so, this is going to be season 3, episode number, 97 overall. So first I wanted to share some feedback from some listeners. One listener writes, "Hey Julian, I listened to your podcast episode with the Australian author yesterday on my drive to work. I really enjoyed it. Great work all around. I love the feel of the show." Thank you for that positive feedback. Always good to know you are listening and enjoying. And then another listener wrote, "I listened to your podcast called Transmuting Shit into Gold." That was with Soraya Leonera a couple months ago. And they write, "I liked it a lot. Lack of sex was a big issue for me in my relationship. I'm going to send this podcast to my girl for her to listen to it. I liked what she was saying about stress in your life affecting your body and your sex life, and that we expect it to work when we want it to, but sometimes it doesn't because you're not healthy." So thank you for that feedback. I'm really glad that was a good episode for you. And I agree, there was a lot of useful information in that one, and it's definitely true that when we talk about health, all these things, our physical health, our relationship health, our emotional health, and our sexuality, they're all so connected. And one thing I can offer is just improving the quality of your communication in your relationship just helps everything so much. So that's always a good thing to be working on and to keep in mind. So if listening to that episode helps you to become more aware of your own health, physical health, emotional health, relationship health, your own sexuality, that's awesome. And I love hearing that, and thank you for that feedback. Now I want to address a difficult situation that's come up here on the podcast. It's come to my attention that a former guest on the podcast has been accused of abuse. And I actually don't want to get into any details about it or say the names of the parties involved, for reasons that I hope are clear by the end of my discussing it here. Now, I definitely do not want to be supporting or seen as endorsing anyone who's acting unethically, especially not anyone who is being abusive in any way. In fact, that's the opposite of the intention of this podcast. And so I have actually reached out to that former guest and talked with him about it. And I've been in touch with the accuser via email. We've had several back and forths now about the situation. And it puts me in a tough situation. There's some new comments on the YouTube episode for it now. Some people are saying that I should put a warning up. Some people are saying I should take the episode down. The fact of the matter is, I don't know what's true here. I've communicated with both sides. And in fact, both sides accuse the other of quote unquote narcissistic abuse. So it's just not within my job or my power or my ability to determine what in fact is true here. So my thinking is that if I put up a warning on that episode or take it down, if in fact these allegations aren't true and I put a warning up about it, then I'm causing reputational damage to them, and that's not ethical as far as I'm concerned on my end. If the allegations are true, then hopefully there'll be an independent investigation of some sort, or if new evidence comes to light, that shows that, then I will take the episode down and I will talk about it here on the podcast. But it doesn't seem ethical to me to do so just on the basis of these allegations. And I'm not even saying which side in this I believe or don't believe, because like I said, I don't know. So it's a tough situation. I'm not 100% sure what the right thing to do here is, but I think at the moment this is the right thing to do, which is to just leave it as it is. If new information comes to light that I'm aware of, then I will react accordingly. I don't know what else I can say about it at this point, but I wanted to address it here on the podcast. So moving on for now, today I'm speaking with Rosh. Rosh is an artist, a musician, a creator, and he created this amazing thing called the Blind Café, which we discuss in our conversation together. It is an experience in which you are put into 100% total complete darkness, and they play music, and you have a gourmet meal, and so you have these vivid sensory experiences but without sight. And so for those of us who are blessed with good eyesight, our visual sense tends to dominate our experience so much. So to enter into a space where that's taken away from you can be so interesting and so potentially transformative and insightful. It was really great talking with him, getting to hear about his life and his journey. And actually, before we get to the episode with him, I'm going to play a song of his. Here's a song from Rosh called The Crown.
Show me love, show me love. Show me the path to the crown up above. Show me faith, show me faith. Show me the constellation, the love that's innate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The name of that song was The Crown. And now, without further ado, I bring you Rosh. I'm here today with Rosh. Rosh, thanks for being on the podcast.
I'm glad to be just doing this. No video, just audio. It's good.
Yeah. Audio is the most important.
Yeah.
So
what were we talking about?
We were just talking about all kinds of stuff.
Okay. I'll let you lead it.
You are a musician and you developed this thing called the Blind Café. I thought that might be a good place to introduce yourself and start off.
Okay.
I don't know if you're tired of talking about the Blind Café because you've been doing it for a while, but it's a super cool event. So if you want to share about it with people.
Yeah. Actually, I'm feeling kind of excited about it again.
Oh, cool.
The pandemic gave me a break.
Was that about a 2-year break?
Yeah. So I started I had my band. I think we were called Rosh, and One Eyeglass Broken back then. We had, a quartet, like cello, female vocals, and bass, all accompanying my songs. And we were just doing a ton of house concerts. And then in 2010, I had this idea from visiting a cafe in the dark in Iceland back in 2006 2010, 2006, all those dates. So basically,
So it was in Iceland?
I was on tour, hitchhiking across Iceland. I was on my second house concert tour there.
Oh.
I had set up all these house concert tours across Europe and Ireland and Germany, Norway, and Iceland. And I would hitchhike from town to town, and I had contacted people to see if they wanted to put me up for a day or two and then have a house concert in their living room, invite all their friends.
Oh, cool.
And it went really well.
Sounds like an adventure. What a way to travel.
It was awesome. And
How did you get in touch with people to even ask them that?
Well, that's a funny one. So for Iceland, everything's in Icelandic, but I could see the @ sign for emails. And so I would just go online and find like any email in Iceland I could find. And I just like had this like, copy ad that I sent to them just saying like, I'm already going to be on tour. And, during this time, like, would you like to host a house concert thing? And I accidentally, I emailed every single mayor in the country of Iceland.
Wow.
And like 5 of them invited me to come stay with them and do a house concert.
Wow, that's so
in
cool.
the living room, yeah.
You stay with 5 different mayors in Iceland.
Yeah, except for mayors in Iceland are like
Did they
very much like everyday people like you and me. They're like
That's the way it should be, right?
I mean, it's like the one town there's only 80 people there that live there.
Jeez.
Or like 700 people in one town.
Is it like a farming, like a village kind of?
Yeah, they have these small little kind of farming villages, and a lot of those horses. And so, anyways, I was hitchhiking across Iceland and doing all these shows, and staying in people's homes, and having late night, talks about marriage, and life, and all these things. Having tea with the mayor or something till 2 a.m.
They can speak some English.
Yeah, most of them spoke English. Yeah. And I was in Reykjavik. And I was, just walking down the street in Reykjavik with my guitar and my backpack, and I saw this really attractive Icelandic girl that was outside of this building, and she had like one of those pop-up tables, and on the table was all these little laminated cards with Braille printed on them.
Oh, cool.
And I was like, "Hey, what's this?" And she's like, "Oh, it's Cafe in the Dark." I was like, "What's that mean?" She goes, "Oh, like you can't see anything in there. The waiters are blind, and if you want to buy anything, you have to pay for it outside here in the light."
Mm-hmm.
And then she give the card, and then I go in there and give that to the waiter. So I pay for my coffee or whatever. I don't even know what I ordered necessarily. And so I'm outside the building. I've got my laminated card with the Braille on it, and she takes me over to this like fabric, carving up this doorway, and she kind of opens it, and she kind of starts pushing me down the hallway by myself into the dark, and I was like, hey, how do I find my seat, and she's like, the waiter will find you. She's like, here, and she gave me a cane. Wow. I'd never met anybody who was blind. I didn't know anything about blindness, and so I'm going down this dark hallway. It's getting darker and darker. I figured enough you could take the cane and scrape it against the floor to try to see what's in front of you. And I get to this another doorway, and I open up that doorway in the fabric, and it's just this wall of darkness.
Wow!
And a wall of sound.
Thick black.
Dishes clanking everywhere. People chatting away nicely. And it's almost like jumping into cold water.
Yeah.
You get that shock. And then when you relax your body, you start to acclimatize to the water temperature.
Yeah, that's a good analogy.
That's how it was for me. And I actually filmed that. I actually have a recording of that.
Black film.
But it's all black. It's a video camera. And so I'm in the dark. I can hear all these people. So I'm just like, all right. So I take my cane, scrape it against the floor, and I'm walking into the cafe space. But I can't. It's literally 100% dark. I can't see my hand in front of my face or anything. Oh. And I can tell that there's some people at this table. And I'm like, are there any extra chairs? And they're like, we don't know. And then I was like, that's a good point. And I ended up finding a chair and hanging out with these kids. I didn't know they were kids.
That's cool. So you connected and talked with them without ever
for 2 hours in the dark, yeah. And they kept on forgetting. They changed the English for me during the conversation so I could be included. But then they'd forget because they didn't see me. And then they'd remember. And so I gave my thing to the waiter, I guess, and he brought me my coffee or whatever. And then at the end, I don't even remember. I think the waiter helped us get out, but it turned out to be all these really cool, like kind of punk rock, Icelandic kids, right? They played like kind of this heavy. They were musicians.
So they're playing music in there?
No,
Oh.
they had a show that night, so they invited me to come do like an acoustic set as like a in-betweener for their two sets of like music. And it was in this tiny little cramped apartment with like, I don't know how many kids. Right? They were teenagers mostly, and I was probably in 31 at the time, and they were just like rocking, and then they all stopped. Everybody got on the floor, listened to like 6 of my songs, like beautifully, like a house concert, and then went back to the second set of music, and they were all like raging. It was cool.
That's cool, man. That's awesome.
So that's where I got the idea, and that was 2006 and 7.
Okay.
And then
That's cool. It's cool how like that image of like blackness, like icy water, like because there's a huge difference between that total blackness that you're talking about and like darkness where you can kind of see a little bit. If you can't see anything, if you can't see your hand up in your face, that's a different experience.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Pure 100% organic.
Yeah.
Free range darkness. So that was 2007 or 6, whatever, when I discovered that Cafe in the Dark, and I had this idea of like, wow, wouldn't it be interesting to do a concert in the dark? Because at the cafe I went to, there was no like group discussion or like social impact thing. It was just more like they set it up temporarily for like a disabilities week where they transform Reykjavik. So I thought, maybe.
Well, you develop's a little bit different because you have like gourmet food and music and more intentional, like everyone coming together, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for me, I wanted to see. My first thought was. And it happened in the dark in Iceland. It was, wow, I wonder what it'd be like to be able to like would I be able to let go, and be more vulnerable and real on a performance if I didn't have all the visual stimuli,
interesting,
right?
Yeah.
And then it kind of moved to thought, well, how could the listener experience music without the social etiquette and like the eye contact, like, and so I originally wanted to do a concert in the dark, and I think it was 2009, fall 2009, right before I graduated at Europa. I was in a diversity class, and this woman Ruth, who was blind. I don't know. We were talking about different situations. Everybody's come up with examples of experiences they had, and I was like, "Hey, I went to this thing. I always been thinking about doing this thing." And Ruthie, she was a blind woman in the class. She came up to me afterwards and was like, "That's a cool idea." She's like, "I don't think I have the time to do it with you, but I know somebody." And she hooked me up with this guy, Rick Hammond, who ended up doing Blind Café with me for 9 years. And he was a spoken word artist. He wanted to do some poetry in the dark. I wanted to do.
And he's blind.
Music. Yeah, he was blind. And then my buddy Marcus, he was he had a farm, and I was like, "Hey, you can chef it." And we just. I don't know, stop me if I'm running on, but...
Yeah, but that's how it came together.
Yeah, and we just did it as a one-off. Just wanted to do a concert in the dark. I rehearsed my band for like 8 weeks in closets and practiced, and then...
But it developed into this pretty big thing that's like where you've traveled all around the country.
Yeah.
Have you taken it internationally?
Almost.
But
Yeah.
all around the country, and you create the Blind Café experience for like a weekend.
Yeah, so...
And you bring in people who are blind, and that's part of it.
Yeah, so basically it's a concert that's performed in 100% darkness that includes like a lot of presence, a lot of like dropping in, sharing what's alive for us in the moment, very AR, authentic relating kind of stuff, as well as
that's cool.
I've made friends with several friends that are legally blind, and they do it with me, and so like it's such a long story, I guess. Originally after I found that guy Rick, I was turned on to another local blind guy here named Jerry, and he ran he's a coffee maker.
Oh
He had a coffee shop down Boulder.
I've been to that, yeah.
Yeah, so he and I went to the local chapter for the blind, this local organization for the blind here in Boulder.
Yeah.
And we pitched the idea, like, hey, like, thinking about doing this concert in the dark, but I felt like maybe the blind community would want to be part of it. But I don't know anything about blindness. I didn't want to, assume. And they all kind of poo-pooed it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and so, and I was there with Jerry, and Jerry loved the idea, And I'm like, and we walk out of this meeting, because apparently, like, a lot of people have done dinner in the darks in the past, and they've just, like, done it in a really terrible way that, like, makes people more, like, afraid or more disconnected to the blind community.
Interesting.
And so,
like, it freaked them out, or it wasn't held well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just some people just don't do things with some level of, I don't know. And so we walk out of that meeting, and I'm like, Jerry, I'm like, that's a bummer. And he's like, fuck those guys, let's do it. And next thing you know, we were sold out for like 2 days of shows, 54 people a night, and Jerry's in the dark, like, sharing about his blindness and talking about what it's like to be blind and be on acid and all this crazy shit. And like my band performed in the dark, and
I'm pretty sure he was there when I first went to it.
Yeah, for sure. And
that's cool, man. That's such a cool idea.
And then we gave all the proceeds to this local guide dog puppy raising group that raises the puppies.
Oh, cool.
And so we've been donating to them for over 10 years now. Anything, we always give something from the shows. The shows are not money makers, but
right. It's such a cool thing because you're doing stuff for charity, basically, right? Like helping raise awareness, helping give money to organizations, and also like giving people an experience that is so far outside of their ordinary. Like, I mean, a lot of people have an instinctive fear of pitch blackness because we rely on our sight so much.
Yep.
I was actually on a meditation retreat a few weeks ago, and the teacher talked about, he didn't name you exactly, but he's like, I heard about this thing where they serve dinner in total darkness, and he's basically describing the Blind Café.
Yeah.
But it was in the context of him talking about how we're so captivated by our sight, our visual sense, we're so dependent on it. Yeah. And actually, much of what we see is really just our concepts. We're not even really seeing what we're seeing concepts.
Yeah.
Like I'm seeing human, or I'm seeing Rosh.
Yeah.
I'm not like noticing the actual color of your skin, It's interesting. I mean, there's like so much there. Like before we started recording, we were talking about Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a podcast he did a few days ago, and he was talking about how he can remember every single house in his neighborhood from when he was 5-6 years old.
Wow. Like
the street he lived on and all the houses and how distinct they were.
Yeah.
And now he's lived in the same neighborhood for 20 years, but he can't see in his mind or remember or even notice all the different houses on his street.
Yeah.
He just knows house.
Yeah.
You don't see the uniqueness. And I think a big part of meditation is being able to like drop into like our actual sensory experience, which as we get older, it gets more and more covered up.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you see things like, wow, look at that tree, or wow, look at that thing.
I don't know if you've ever like you had your car break down and then you have to walk places for like a bunch of times. You start noticing everything that's around your place. Yeah. And you start seeing the different trees, and you start seeing the rock, and you start seeing the kid that plays in the yard, and that Subaru, out there.
Yeah.
That's been slowing down like that, and so that's a good point, because from the outside it looks like we're doing a dinner in the dark, right?
Right.
Kind of, to some extent. But a dinner in the dark would be really boring. And like, to me, that would be like lame. We take it to the next level. So most dinner in the dark experiences that I know of is like you go just like you would at a restaurant with your date, and you're brought to a table, and it's your own table.
That was a cool part of it. There was a waiter or a human who brought you to your table and sat. Like I remember him pulling out the chair for me and helping me sit down. Yeah. Because I couldn't even see the chair.
Exactly. Right. So, if you just came with your date at a regular dinner in the dark, you sat at the table, they bring you the menu, they bring out the different, courses, and it's just the two of you, and there are other people, but you're not interacting. With us, it's like, I really wanted to, number one, the point of it was to do a concert in the dark originally, and then figured everybody should just break bread together, like Thanksgiving, because like, what are the things that really help us connect and feel more connected and less disconnected in life? And that's my essential mission. Food and everything I do. Yeah. And so everybody breaks bread together at our shows in the dark. We just put all the food on the table, like Thanksgiving, and people have to pass it around and
Oh yeah, I remember
work
that.
together.
It's
yeah.
awkward, yeah.
It's awkward, yeah.
It takes some communication and some awkwardness.
Exactly, and so
And you can feel the other. I could feel the other people because I went to it a few times. I could feel the other people's kind of like anxiety or nervousness
Yeah.
or trying to hand me something, but I have no idea, can't see anything.
I know, and so you're relating with somebody, but you have no visual, right?
Yeah.
It's super interesting. So
It's so interesting.
that's what's been after doing it for 10 years. That's what's been amazing is recognizing this relationship or this awareness that we start to expand our own consciousness or awareness around self and other without the visual, without the distraction of visual conditioning, social etiquette, without the phones.
Yeah.
And so you're in the dark with somebody, and every movement you have to bring presence to. It just like jars people out of like their past, like thinking in the past or worrying about the future. And you're in the dark, and you kind of have to be present, right? And and however you are comfortable with being present with yourself, in general, when you're not in a situation that it's uncertain, determines quite a bit of what people experience in the dark. And so a lot of people really get in touch with themselves and maybe even have some presence with themselves and where they haven't for years before. And so I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of people write me long messages telling me about how, like, attending your show was like saved our marriage. She's like, my husband held my hand in a way that he hadn't in 15 years, and we sparked everything.
That's beautiful.
And so the combination of teaching people and creating the container for people to be able to let go of their words. We teach them active listening before they go in the dark. And we have a Tibetan singing bell, and we ring it. And we bring them the presence in the dark. And we basically bring them in and out of chaos. So when they're brought to the table, everybody talks extra loud. They have no idea where the food is. They have no idea how to relate to themselves or each other because they're in the dark. So they're just completely disoriented. But we have the blind ambassadors who are not waiters. But they're there to really basically help everyone, like, feel good. If you need it, you need to get out because you're losing your shit in the dark. That's great. But the food's on the table, so there's no like waitering, for our events. And and so so in the beginning it's like intense. And so let everybody kind of work with that chaos for about 30 minutes, and we ring the bell, bring presence, and then one of our principles is vulnerability first. So like myself or the blind staff, we drop our shoulders, they toss us in a rubber, and we just allow ourselves to be in that vulnerable humility place, dignity and humility piece, and start to open up and share. And the blind staff would share about themselves and their experience with non-vision, and sometimes we do the what's alive for me moment.
Oh, cool.
And then we invite the audience to not just ask questions and learn about the blind staff, because there is a piece to it, but to share with us what's going on for them. And they will say shit and ask shit they would never say in the dark. I mean, it's never say in the light.
Oh, interesting.
They would say, like...
You feel like people are more open?
Yeah, people start to really open up and get vulnerable because they're in total darkness. Nobody can see them. They'll say stuff that they'd never say in a lighted setting, or ask questions they never would. And a lot of times, we're all crying with somebody. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
We had this one experience in Portland where this woman was sharing, and it was a beautiful share, and we're all crying with her. She's like, I feel like this is the first time I've ever been in a social setting where I wasn't being related to or seen as a overweight or a black woman first.
Oh, wow.
And it was just like, whoa. And then the blind staff started sharing about what it's like to meet people in the light, and people see their cane and get all awkward and weird. Because, you see this cane and how, like, sometimes people don't think that you can't see them, so they're just kind of like walk by you, but some blind, for quite a bit, have some sight, so they can see that you're...
I wonder if they can sense you in other ways.
And, but in the dark, a lot of times where you might be navigating the dark and you meet someone and you're talking with them, you don't even realize they're one of the blind ambassadors.
Oh, wow.
And so they get the experience of you not being all
Not knowing.
weird because you see the cane.
Yeah.
And so we had the
I love that.
African American woman sharing that piece
Yeah.
and the blind staff. And then for the musicians, like for me, as an artist, Radiohead, you know Radiohead?
Yeah, yeah.
Tom York is the main songwriter. If you ever see a video of him on stage, it's like he's having an epileptic seizure, right?
Very unusual dancer, right?
Yeah, he's just like, and he's just got a level of uninhibited,
Right.
raw, vulnerable, honest neurosis. As he performs, it's just remarkable.
Yeah.
So that was really inspiring for me. So I could get vulnerable and open in a house concert setting, but in the dark, I'm just on stage and I just,
Oh, wow.
I'm uninhibited and
body-
able to deliver.
Your body's uninhibited.
Yeah.
Uninhibited too, yeah.
Yeah,
Because you're not being seen or judged.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then the audience is
What a gift.
able to really feel their feelings
Yeah.
and not have to
I love
hold it
that.
back, they start to tear up if you looking around. Because people don't want to show too much emotion in a lighted concert.
Yeah, it's
setting.
so interesting because you're not seeing someone's facial expressions, or if someone is tearing up, you're not going to see it. You might not know.
I've just gotten on the floor and just bawled like a little baby to
Wow.
When Richie, one of the other lead performing artists, when he's performing this song called Darkness that he wrote about the Blind Café, man. So I would just go cry at my own shows. It was awesome.
Wow.
I would literally be bawling on the floor, right there on stage in front of Richie as he's playing the song to open the show, and then I would get up and then I would perform my songs. And that level of vulnerability and openness, and tapping into the music, it's just, I don't know.
It's inspiring to hear about. It's amazing how even if you don't want to or have no intention to be performative, just the act of being seen and witnessed by other people visually kind of is a kind of performance. And so taking that away, it makes sense. Like you can just be in your own experience without being seen. Like it's just,
Yep.
there's so much there. It reminds me of a kind of death and rebirth, or almost like even like a psychedelic experience where your perception is so changed. The other thing it makes me think about is like, I don't know how far down this rabbit hole we want to go, but like things like the distance like we're in this like world of concepts most of the time, and like seeing someone as close or far away, like it's all kind of concepts, Or someone's fat or someone's skinny, that's all concepts. And so to take all that away, because if you hear someone's voice, if you're just in your auditory, there is a spatial kind of location to that, but it's different, right? It's like it's
There's a lot less filters and little judgmental than social etiquette. It's remarkable. It's like you're free from all this it's like for me, especially being ADD, I feel like constantly like there's 26 people talking to me at all times when I walk around. So if I seem crazy, that's what's happening. Right? Plus all the visual stimuli and everything. So for me, I was, bring lights down, light candles at home, and in the dark, it's like all this noise is just finally shut the fuck up. Just
shut the fuck up.
And then I actually can connect with self on a level that's really, really profound. And we piloted a program called Dismantling Racism Discussions in the Dark.
Yeah.
My friend Pedro Silver, he's the pastor at the First Congregational Church. So he was doing these dismantling racism discussion workshops in the light, and so he wanted to do it in the dark. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And we piloted that. We got some funding from the city of Boulder. I piloted a couples in the dark program in San Francisco in 2013, and people loved that.
Like around relationships and couples?
I had 6 couples come each night for 3 nights, and I gave them their own little nest.
Yeah.
And picnic basket, and I had the chef wrap these things in the picnic basket and little mason jars.
Yeah.
We had them pretend they're camping somewhere, anywhere in the world, and then that's how we referred to the different couples. And we had them try to just share experiences and feed each other, and then come up with 2 or 3 things that you've discovered through love relationship that work to help you stay in connection. and then a couple of things that you're still stumped about. And then we did a collective wisdom kind of discussion later on.
Oh, cool.
Around a candle. And then we brought everybody hot cocoa, and they got bourbon in it and water. It was awesome. So.
Sorry about the dog. That's so cool to think about with couples, because that's a place where we get so habituated, right? You get so used to someone else.
Yeah.
And to find ways to break out of those patterns can be super valuable. And again, it's like seeing someone new for the first time. Like that's so healing.
Yeah.
And it's true. It's authentic. Each moment is new, and we take ourselves, we take other people for granted.
Yeah, I want to take it to the next level at some point, because that Couples in the Dark is very PG. Nobody's hooking up, right? But I have had a few experiences where we were in Portland and we were doing three nights of shows, and during the day in the middle, the second day or whatever, the venue's there, nobody's there, and it's dark. So I had a lover at the time in Portland, and I was like, meet me at a coffee shop. We met at a coffee shop just down the street from the venue. And then I gave her instructions I had her enter from one side of the building, and I entered from the other side of the building, and we met in the dark.
Wow.
And we just had this beautiful exploration of each other. And then we both left from separate entrances, and then had a little time to ourselves, and then we met at the coffee shop again.
Oh, wow.
It was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
That's so cool to hear about, yeah.
So I'd love to I think there'd be ways to help people get out of their subjective thinking patterns, or being caught in the past or the future.
Right.
And through the darkness experience, we could help people get back to that spot and connect with self, and then help them connect with others. And it could be anywhere from just remembering feelings and just being present with each other to love making and tantra work and stuff.
Oh, wow.
So
I like in that story you just shared how you entered separately and met in the dark.
And then we left separately.
And then you left separately, because that ability to connect and be with yourself is so important, and that deepens your relationship with someone else.
Oh yeah, I mean it's the biggest mistake everybody makes in relationships is it's like when you're not in a relationship and you get to a place where you're like taking care of yourself well, you're doing those things that make you happy, that make you an awesome person, which some of those things that you do to be an awesome person that's very attractive is to do a lot of things that you don't want to do, right? And so then you meet somebody, fall in love, and at least in my experience, and I think this is what I see in other people, but my personal experience, it's like slowly I stop going and doing those things I need to do in order to be the awesome person I am. And a lot of the things are not very comfortable. It's easier to just go, I'm just gonna go snuggle with my girlfriend. Yeah. And so we get addicted to that, being together thing all the time.
Comfort and habits.
Plan it out.
Yeah.
It's just
and then you're no longer really being the person that attracted them.
Well, that's what I'm saying. And then you have the classic, I don't know who I am anymore. It's but it's 80% me, and it's 80% the other person. I think 20% probably got, palatability. What is that word?
I know what you're talking about, 80-20 kind of rule.
Well, yeah. I don't know. It's just at this point, I'm thinking to myself, okay, my success in any relationship it's not going to be about finding the right person. It's going to be more about 80% about me being the right person for me.
I think that's a mature perspective.
And then compatibility. That was the word.
Yeah.
So.
It's a big topic. I mean, there's a lot of ways in which couples, you could feel held back by the other person. Yeah. Or you could just feel kind of locked into a certain routine.
But if you I don't know. I mean, some people might do it differently, but the idea of spending all your time together all the time, it's just it'd be hard, because then I wouldn't be doing I'd stop doing all the things that make me the awesome person they were attracted to in the first place.
Yeah. Well, the other thing you mentioned was authentic relating, and I had Jason Diggs on the podcast, probably a year ago, who wrote a book about authentic relating. I know he's good friends with you.
Yeah.
Did he go to Naropa? No.
No, but he lived with me.
He lived with you when you were at Naropa, when we met.
Yeah.
Okay. So we went to Naropa together anyway.
Yeah.
But authentic relating is, I can feel that's been a big influence for you and a big part of the work that you want to bring into the world to facilitate more deeper, authentic connections, relations. And
Yeah, that's definitely going to inform a lot of, how the Blind Café, like these different kind of spin-off programs and our signature experience it starts to evolve because me and Jason actually been piloting a couple AR in the dark.
Oh, cool.
Authentic Relating in the Dark programs.
That's awesome. Just talking with you now, I'm like having all these ideas because you could take almost any workshop or training and just throw it in the dark. Like that's just gonna add so much.
What business are you in? I'm in the darkness business.
Because it forces people out of your comfort zone. And
they get a more direct embodied experience. Right. Because you can go to like any workshop and you can be checked out the whole time. Yeah. And you're like kind of drawing, you're checking your phone, or you're just paying attention, and you just feel overwhelmed. But in the dark, it's really hard not to be present. And
or
so
if you're not present, you'll get reminded because you'll run into a wall or something.
Exactly.
I mean, I remember eating dinner there and knocking something over. I was like, I should have gone a little slower. Like I wasn't really I wasn't really present, and then I knocked this thing over.
And that's the piece is like it's actually knocking something over and not having that moment of not bringing awareness and consciousness to your movement in the dark. Actually, it's like the Tibetan singing bell that rings you. It reminds you.
Yeah, I think it was a glass of water.
Yeah.
But the other thing I'm just thinking about to say again is just we judge other people so much by how they look. If you're meeting someone for the first time in the dark, wow. Because
we had a couple
that would be a really cool
that met on an app in San Francisco, and then they decided that they would meet in the dark in person for the first time. And so they both showed up like kind of at different times for one of our San Francisco playing, dinner, concert in the dark dinner things. And so they both showed up and they talked to one of our people, and they were like, I get this person on this app and we decided to meet in the dark for the first time. So we brought them to their table.
App or something? Okay.
It was just a regular dating app that they had met, and they wanted to go on their first date, and they decided to do it in the dark at our show.
That's cool.
Right?
Yeah.
And so they met in the dark for the first time in person. And then about a year later, I'm back in San Francisco, same time of the year. I get this call like a week before the shows, and someone's like, "Hey, we had our first date in the dark a year ago, and now we're getting married."
Whoa.
Yeah. He's like, oh no. He was like, I want to propose to my girlfriend. He's like, I want to do it in the dark. He's like, can we, like when you light the candle at the end of your show, can that be the moment where I kneel down and ask her to marry him? And I was like, sure.
That's beautiful.
And so he brought some photographers. We had all these photographers like posed in the dark, ready at their table, because I sit, do the thing, it does the thing, and we're all in the dark, and everybody's like, what's the thing? I light the candle, right? Light the candle, and then just like he gets down on his knees, and it was real close quarters in that show too. Everybody was just like, whoa, and like he asked her to marry him, and it was just beautiful. We were all crying.
I love that. Wow.
Dozens and dozens of little stories and moments like that have been happening, and that's what I want to capture.
Yeah. So the way you come out of the darkness is by lighting a candle. That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a thing.
What is the longest amount of time you've spent in pitch blackness?
The longest I've put people through the dark. In the beginning, I didn't time it. I was just like, let's see what the fuck happens. I was a lot more comfortable with seeing what happens. And I think we had people in the dark for 3.5 hours once.
Oh, yeah. It's a long time.
Yeah, it's a lot. And then I've put like almost 200 people in the dark, 175 people in the dark at the same time, way back in the beginning, because we just had so many ticket sales.
Wow.
And my team after that was like, Rosh, there's too many people in the dark. I was like, you were so right. It was crazy.
That's a lot, because if something happened, it's a lot of people. Yeah.
We were just pushing the limits back in the beginning. You don't know what you're doing. I didn't know what else.
Yeah.
I just did it. I did it as a one-off originally. I wasn't going to do it again.
Right.
But everybody started writing me from all over the country and asking me to bring it to them.
I think it's a service. I think it's an experience that would really benefit more and more people. Like I want to go back and do it again. I mean, there's a tradition, and you've probably heard this in Tibetan Buddhism, of dark retreat, where you're in meditation retreat and you're supposed to be in pitch blackness and You're supposed to have, like, someone will, like, bring you food and put it in a little cubby, and then you open it up so no light can get in and take it out. I think traditionally it would usually be done for a week, but there was a tradition doing it for like 49 days, of which it was said at the end you're either enlightened or insane. There's some saying like that. But
I remember Reggie Ray at one of the cartoons, he talked about that.
But it was in part, like, I think what traditionally people would do is like go through the dying process like consciously.
Yeah.
And have a death and rebirth, and apparently you can. I haven't done it, but you start to see visual phenomena that your mind is just creating without the sources of light, and you can relate to those. And I hope to do something like that one day. But I think it's becoming more known and more common and talked about. And it's interesting with this time of year we're in is the darkest time of the year. In terms of the nights being the longest, and I notice in myself resistance to that, and I feel like our whole culture is in resistance to that. Like we have artificial lights, we're 24-hour internet, phone, this and that. It's so hard to
it's like we don't
wind down, slow down, relax. You're really going against the grain to allow yourself to be in darkness or to do less.
Yeah, it's almost like everybody goes through a portal. It's like some grad student was doing something on like, what was it, transitory experiences or initiatory experiences. And it's like you have all these people that show up separate. They're with their friend or their date, or a lot of people bring their kids. And then we pair them up in group of 6. Now they're in that group. Or 8 people. And then they're brought into the darkness. And they're sat at their table and they have to work together. Right? And then and there's the chaos of the sound. And then we bring the presence. They go through the drop into their heart and really get their intellectual and heart piece together.
So you make a little team before you go in. It's cool.
And then we bring them into the music, which just shuts the mind off. Everybody, these are listening in the dark concerts, so I train the audience to be able to drop in and just feel the music, let go of your words. And people are able to experience listening and, and feeling music on a level that they may not have since they were teenagers. And they had a lot of time.
Right.
And, and you're really feeling the music. And,
that's a good point.
So that gets people in their hearts. And then we have everybody singing their, at the top of their lungs, the final song we do, The Light. And I'm like, all right, you guys are ready to do the thing. That's the thing that makes it all happen. Everybody's like, what's the thing? Because I've been teasing it all night. And then we light the candle. And they're like, whew. Suddenly everybody's spatial awareness kicks in. And it's like, we're all looking at each other like we woke up from some collective dream or something,
Yeah.
And then, so I let that simmer for about 2-3 minutes now. And then have people share with each other what came up for them at their tables. And then a few people from each table share with the room.
Yeah.
And that, we only started doing that like the last 3 years of the 10 years that we've been doing it. But that was like the final piece that we'd always been missing. Is that like kind of little debrief, whatever.
That's a special moment when you first bring light back in, because that's like the chance to
and
see
everybody's
things
so present.
Oh.
Compared to like
that's what you look like
the way they arrive. Yeah, a lot of people like try to guess what each other looks like, and then they're like, let's guess what we describe each other, what we imagine from our voice, and then find out like. So we have a group of people in Austin, Texas. They come every time. It's like these 3 girls and 2 guys. They come and they take photos of themselves out in the light. They go in the dark, and then they come out with each other's clothes on, like a mixed match of each other's clothes, and they take photos afterwards.
Oh, funny!
And I don't know what they do. I don't know how they do it, but
that'd be a challenge to change clothes. Well, I love the authentic relating, the bringing people together, like building a little team and the relating and being a community. And I mean, honestly, that's I think kind of a downside of a lot of spiritual meditative traditions like Buddhism, where a lot of practices are done kind of on your own, and you're missing the interpersonal piece. And I think that can be kind of create problems. Like we really need to integrate and bring them together. And it's good to have both. I mean, it's good to have time in solitude, but it's really good to have time, intentional building presence where you're actually relating and connecting to other people, because that's so much of our life. We're social creatures.
Yeah.
And I think that's
what's so amazing about the art, the AR stuff.
Yeah.
Is all these skills, and I've been studying with this. I've been studying the art of conscious loving with this teacher Charles Muir and Leah Piper. They're these male and female teachers from started in the 60s, but it's like a type of tantric work, and I think there's all this beautiful work of like how to like do these simple, very kitchen sink level skill sets.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff you can do. Kitchen sink meaning it's very direct. It's not like some spiritual idea. You can actually bring these things and they're very tangible, much like Chogyam's teachings, and apply them to your life and be able to bring more presence and open up and connect with your partner more.
That's beautiful.
However, that work is really deep work, and there's a lot of just beautiful practice for lovers, but the communication, authentic relating work, that, and then now I'm doing a training with doing partner yoga this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Not acro yoga, but a little bit more partner yoga. It's a little bit it's different.
Yeah.
It's really about connecting with each other, and I realized that the partner yoga piece and the authentic relating piece is like the foundational piece that the more art of conscious loving work would need more of a foundation on that.
So, I see what you're saying.
So when it comes to
it's foundational. Yeah. Well, being in our body is pretty foundational to any kind of work like that, I think.
Yep.
It's beautiful. There's a lot of cool ideas here.
Yeah, it's crazy. There's a lot in there, man. There's a lot in there. But for me, I did the Blind Café because I wanted to do a concert in the dark, and I made friends with a spoken word artist who was blind, and he wanted to do that, and we happened to have a little conversation in the dark with the audience, but really for me, when it comes to the blind awareness piece or the social impact discussion in the dark, until recently when I've really started to bring a lot of the authentic relating kind of perspective and teaching my team that, I just left it up to the blind, my friends that are blind, to, that's your window, do what you want with it. And it's been amazing to see it.
Yeah.
And because people are like, oh, you do blind awareness, or did you know somebody's blind? It's like, no. I never thought about blindness. I'm not, I care. Do I care about blindness? I care about people feeling connected, and helping myself and other people feel more connected and less disconnected. And this forum of the darkness is an amazing experience because it's not just the blind and the sighted people interacting. It's it's the music piece. It's the transmission. It's this relationship with the self that starts to become aware, and then all the other crazy shit we could do in the dark with it.
Yeah. So I thought of something, maybe this is a good window into what I was trying to talk about in terms of letting go of concepts, but if you're in a space of total blackness, for a period of time, you're going to lose that sense of spatial location that our visual sight kind of does, and that I think that's really profound, actually.
Yeah.
Our consciousness is not limited. It's not here versus there. It transcends that.
Yeah. And so there's a lot to discover there once all that vision is taken away for a few minutes.
The whole kind of duality of me and you. It seems very obvious in our vision, our visual field.
Yeah.
So to take that away, it's like all of a sudden, maybe it's not like that.
Yeah, we should do a podcast interview in the dark.
Yeah, we should.
See what that's like. Yeah. I don't know if I took over the conversation and just kind of ranted, but
no,
you asked. So I'll let you kind of guide us forward.
That's what you're here for.
But really, Blind Café is epic. It's awesome.
Yeah.
But for me, it's the friendships, the relationships, and the creative process of music that and transmitting that to an audience in a way that I feel that I could best create a container for people to be able to really get the transmission of my particular style of songs. Go to a coffee shop, people on
their phone
and all that stuff, and I could never do the bars because I don't drink and don't stay up late. So my friend Dango from Elephant Revival was doing all the circuits, making his way up to Red Rocks and all that, and the whole time. And I was like, oh, what do I do with my music? And I was like, I guess I'm going to nowhere in Iceland to play for these random people. And I just trusted that because whenever I listen to my marching orders, what I mean by that is just this, it could be an intuitive nudge or whatever that inner compass is, that next right action. I would just hitchhike to a whole nother country, don't know anybody, and do this random tour. that like I barely could communicate with them on these
wild,
Icelandic websites.
Yeah.
But it led to the Blind Café experience.
Yeah.
And,
Listen to your intuition. I love that.
oh yeah, and then people's intuition can be confusing and sometimes wrong.
It can seem that way, yeah.
Yeah, for me it's more the inner compass.
Inner
so there's
compass.
gut level stuff.
Yeah.
It's more of like I don't know, it's more deeper, like not understanding or understanding.
Something beyond the rational, logical mind. That's like, get some sense of this is the next thing. And I actually got this necklace to help. This is like a compass.
Yeah.
I've been like consciously trying to do that. Like what is my inner knowing? Yeah. And it takes it's taking risks. And it's a little scary, and sometimes it feels like it's maybe a mistake or wrong, but there's like something new's happening when you listen to that.
Yeah, I started the Blind Café in 2010, the first concert, and everybody wanted to do it a month later, so I rallied and got people to do it again. And then I went to Iceland Institute that in April of 2010.
In California.
Yeah, and I worked there for a couple months, did a permaculture training, and I didn't really care about permaculture, but I just wanted to go there and be part of one of the programs. I had graduated, and I was going to go off to Thailand to do this Muay Thai kickboxing.
Oh, wow.
Because I had been doing that. It was like the best shape I've ever been before. And I'm at Iceland, and like I'm learning about this permaculture stuff, and they do mind maps of like trees and house and the sun and the rain coming in, and you circle that and you see what inputs and what outputs are happening. And I ended up doing a big map of Blind Café and trying to understand where value was being contributed and feedback, positive feedback loop for everyone.
Yeah.
And I got this voice in my head saying, "Go to Portland and start a Blind Café." And I had tickets to Thailand.
Oh.
But it was that voice in my head was so intense. I quit all my plans, hitchhiked to Portland, Oregon, didn't know anybody. I got a job at this organic cracker factory.
Oh, really?
Like packing crackers. It was like raw organic crackers.
That's amazing.
And that's how I paid my rent, and I found this venue willing to do the Blind Café. And I ran around the town and put all these flyers everywhere.
That's cool to hear about you moving or traveling without maybe knowing people there and just taking that risk.
Yeah, because I had traveled for like 15, 20 years before that.
Wow.
And so this is how it happened. I would go to Portland or Austin or San Francisco. I'd go, like in Austin, I just moved there. I moved into a co-op with 23 people, because I knew if you move into a co-op with 23 people, you have 100 friends soon enough, right? And so I did that, and then I
didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah, and I was going to do the Blind Café in Austin, and I was at the university, and I approached this woman that was blind, and she was like, I don't know about it, but I have a friend. Give me your number or something. I didn't know how to, and I was like, I'm going to do this thing, and that ended up being Richie, one of the lead blind ambassadors and musicians that's been with me since the beginning.
I love that word, ambassador.
Yeah.
That's great, man.
He was like, let's get Thai food. So I met him at Thai food.
And you're like, I was supposed to be in Thailand.
Yeah, and I was telling him about the Blind Café, and he's like, he's like, let's do this. And I'm like, I just need a chef. And then all of a sudden from the booth behind us, this guy's like, I'm a chef. Because he was listening to us. And then like this other guy wanted to do event coordination, and then we had a team.
Then you were like, why are you listening to our conversation? No.
I don't know, I could just...
That's amazing.
Like,
did he become the chef?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and event coordinator. It was just remarkable.
That's synchronicity. Like something that's more than a coincidence,
Yeah, I don't know if you travel a lot, but when you travel, it's just all flow and intuitive.
It opens you up to the
compass kind of
I
stuff.
want to travel more. I've done some, but I actually just got to go to Mexico, so I experienced that there. I met someone by total chance, it seemed, who had done this exact same coaching program I had done like a couple years after me. So we knew all these people in common, and it was for me a synchronicity. It was like, this is not just a random meeting. It's like, wow, like we know 20 people in common, and so it helped. It was super cool. But yeah, I think traveling opens you up to that. It's like you're just open to more possibilities for some reason. You're outside of your routines, your habits.
Yeah, it always been the way I lived for so long.
So I heard about something. I just thought of this. There's new medical procedures that are helping some people who are blind to regain their sight, and that's wonderful. It's like this medical advance, or even people that might have been born blind, like, when they're a baby, like, get their sight back. But then there's some people, I read this article about it a while ago, who are advocating that we shouldn't just do that all the time. That, like, blind people have their own culture and their own way of life that they developed in, like, Braille, and it would be a shame if through medical advances that was totally lost. Like, some people actually can choose, like, they want to choose to be blind, and they want to have kids who are blind, and there's this whole interesting thing about rights and culture and choice, and also like human rights, because like if it's a child, is it unethical to have them stay blind if you could restore their sight, and all these interesting questions. But
man, let's bring that up when we do some podcast stuff for the Blind Café with the blind staff.
Yeah,
because I've spent 10 years with over 60,000 people in a dark, over that 10-year time, sharing and discussing and talking with the blind staff. So I've been hearing people ask questions like that, and the blind staff sharing that.
Oh.
And a lot of them would say that no, I wouldn't want to. It'd be too jarring for them, or it'd be too.
They would say no.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah.
And it's different because like Richie from Austin, that guy I met, Taifu, he was 100% blind since he was a kid. So he's not even blind. He doesn't see.
Was he born blind?
I think he had some sight, but for the first year or so, but he had a cancer thing.
Oh, wow.
And so, but he doesn't see.
Wow, okay.
So he doesn't see black. It's not like blind towards left or white, or I don't know.
Sight at all.
He just literally doesn't have that sense.
Wow.
Which blows my mind. I still don't know how to grasp that.
Comprehend. Yeah.
Yeah. So for him, he grew up that way.
Wow.
And so he's not struggling with what it used to be like when he had sight. Where my buddy Jimmy Jackson lost his sight gradually. I had to go through that whole experience.
So different. Yeah.
Of like being in, senior in high school and having to use his cane in front of other people.
Wow.
And like struggling with that identity.
Wow. Yeah.
And
that sounds much more difficult.
Yeah, and so an interesting part of the thing with that is that we've had local blind folks that want to join us or come check us out or be part of the blind ambassador team. And we had this one guy, I think it's Trey or something. He was blind and he needed to use a cane, but he just didn't want to continue to use. He didn't want to use a cane because he didn't want people to see him that way.
Oh wow!
And so then the blind staff at our shows kind of encouraged him, and give him a lot of love and acceptance, and we're like, it's okay. You can become part of our team.
Oh cool!
And so he ended up using a cane. And,
oh cool!
And then we've had little blind kids, 8-year-olds and 10-year-old blind kids at this show in Dallas. And Richie's Jimmy, after the show, the guy who lost his sight gradually, was talking to their mom. The mom was talking about how they're struggling with being seen as blind or not. And so he was giving the mom a really beautiful insight because the mom was kind of seeing blindness as a bad thing.
Right.
And so he was giving her a perspective that she can actually encourage and appreciate, and that can just be part of their unique experience.
Yeah. That's amazing. It's so beautiful.
Can we talk about something different?
Like what?
I don't know. Do we have any other non-darkness subtext?
Get out of that.
I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Well, you're a musician and an artist. Do you want to, anything about that you want to share?
Well, I did provide a song.
Sweet.
And the music. Music's important.
Let me ask you this: what moves you? What drives you? What gets you up in the morning?
What gets me up in the morning is anxiety.
Anxiety.
Yeah, anxiety, fear, neurosis.
Shoots you straight out of bed. You're just like.
Pretty much. I've been doing this hypnotherapy stuff in the mornings, and that's actually really been amazing to get me going differently. But
online?
But I just felt a lot my whole life, so I'd really, I don't know if you call it empathic or whatever, where you feel things a lot. Mm-hmm. And then with the ADD, I feel like 26 people are talking to me all at the same time. So it's throughout my days, it's sometimes can be really overwhelming.
Yeah.
And I'm also just a lover. I just really want to connect. I've had trouble being able to stay in connection or be part of any kind of group thing or anything that I have to be reliable for. So I was just pushed through school, all Fs, like through high school, middle school, high school, and then so I always like just kind of had to do my own thing, and I wasn't able to kind of feel connected with other people, and so quite often, your biggest void or challenge is your biggest gift, and how you can help others.
Yeah.
And so everything I do, bringing friends together for camping trips, or blind cafes, or house concerts, or whatever, it's like to help us all feel more connected. And for me, the music piece is like I'm writing a song now called "Like an Instrument," which is about the subtlety of like getting to know a woman's or a partner's like body and skin as you go throughout it, and then but at the end, there's this line that came out there, and I was just playing it once. It was like, if I didn't have the music to help me through hard times, I'd be dead from drugs. And it's like, it's true. Like, I don't know how people process or move through their emotional challenges without writing songs. It's the only way I know. And so for me, I have to write my songs for my mental health.
Music.
And it's the only way I can really move, transmute things or whatever. And I think it's why people really feel deeply to them, because I can't sit down and write a song. For me, it's this long, painful, like birth, pregnancy or whatever.
It's sometimes coming out of pain, suffering.
Yeah, and just like sitting with it and moving through it.
So like your creative process is almost like you don't have a choice. Like you said, you'd be dead.
Yeah, it's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really drank much or smoked pot or whatever, but yeah, I mean, there's been some periods where I couldn't write music.
Yeah.
And I was so unhappy.
Unhappy.
Unhappy, yeah, and I could see and then like there's a moment like where I learned to drink like really good like dark beer for a while, and I was like enjoying it.
Yeah.
But then like I had like some upsetting situations, and I was writing songs, and I was like, oh, this is why everybody's struggling with alcohol, because you can drink beer and you shut it down.
Right.
And it shuts it off, and I was like, that was interesting.
Temporarily, sometimes, yeah.
I just never really got it, because alcohol was always, and so, so being able to understand ourselves and understand our experiences, or look at those, parts of our lives that were challenging or upsetting or traumatizing.
And you made a choice at some point to not drink at all?
It's just in high school, all my friends would drink beer out in the woods, and they'd get excited and have all this energy, and I'd want to go to sleep.
Let me ask you a question that I've asked some guests on the podcast that I think is an awesome question. Okay. It's not original to me, but what is one, experience or time in your life that you would never wish on anyone else? Like something really difficult that you went through, but that led to, that you would also want to change for the world because it led you to where you are now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's a thing. I guess the one that's most immediate is that after 7 years of like just being on tour every weekend, all over the country, doing Blind Café, I hit a burnout. And that's a real thing. It's actually a real physical thing.
You felt it in your body.
No, I mean it's like I guess it's a fucking real thing. It's not just like I got tired or overworked. It's like you literally train your
adrenaline.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And I just collapsed. I just couldn't. I went from like drama all the way, doing everything, and then things grew bigger than I could handle. I didn't have the skill sets to really help Blind Café get where it was going, and I just worked myself to a point where I became burnt out, and I became completely full-blown anxiety, depression.
Jeez.
Anxiety, and then I was depressed because the anxiety kept me from being able to do what I want, and I was dropping the ball on everybody. And then when you start dropping the ball on everybody and you're no longer reliable, you lose connection. And it was really confusing, and I didn't understand what was happening. And so, and I just...
When was that?
This was 2017, in the fall. Yeah. I had a friend that was working with me.
You were 3 years too early because if that had hit when the pandemic hit, it would have been perfect.
Well, the pandemic kind of was perfect for me because
Okay.
I spent 2000. I mean, after the burnout, I like a woman that I loved with just all my fucking heart. Alicia, she passed away,
Oh my god.
and that December 2017, from after she had been struggling with heroin, and
Oh wow.
it was a real violent death, and then the guy had been working with me for a couple of years. Like I had to fire him and found out he'd been stealing money from us for like a bunch of years, and so
Wow.
and he went around and like wrote it.
Those are two really big things.
Yeah, he went around and told all like the long time venues and relationships, saying all sorts of terrible stuff about us. So I had to get a lawyer and cease and desist, and I started collapsed at like dignity, humility scale thing, and I'd be in front of an audience, and I'd be like doing my thing, and I was just like, I can't do this. And I just like handed it to Richie. And I walked out.
Wow.
Like I just became like,
You hit a wall.
yeah, and my self-esteem was shot.
Oh wow.
And so I spent 2018 and 19 rebuilding my self-esteem, like screaming affirmations in the mornings. Tony Robbins teaches affirmations. I never really gave it a real shot, but I needed to, and I did that. And then I went to this thing in Bali, this A-Fest thing, and I found this lifeboat program, which is the backbone of that program and the work is Nathaniel Brandon, who's one of the top psychotherapists around self-esteem and romantic love. And I just literally did this exercise and just got me,
Nathaniel Brandon?
Nathaniel Brandon, yeah.
Oh, nothing like that.
I wouldn't wish people to feel that unable to, because when you're depressed and you're really depressed, you feel like you can't, like there's nothing that you can do that'll actually make you feel better.
Yeah, right.
It's awful.
It's tough. It's really tough.
And yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's an easy one for me to jump to for your question, if I'm honest.
No, I appreciate you sharing. I mean, it sounds like you were betrayed by a longtime coworker, associate, whatever, partner, and
It's
then
awful
also
classic.
the death of your girlfriend. But
Yeah.
it's really rough.
Yeah, I'm watching her struggle and die of heroin. We had dated like 10 years before that, but then in 2007. And then I watched her struggle, and I'd pick her up at rehab up in Greeley or whatever. And every like year or two, I would pick her up there, and when she's straight, she'd be like so thin. She'd be like 72 pounds or something. She was like, 110 or something. And I brought her to the Chevalier Center every time. Got one of the rooms, and I would just bathe her, just take care of her. We wouldn't make love or reconnect. It was just, and I just like take care of her. And she struggled emotionally the way I do, and the way some other people I know do. And I guess if I didn't have the music to help me through those hard times, I would, I think if I've ever took heroin, I would be gone. Because it would work too well.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you found a lot of ways to help yourself, a lot of tools, a lot of teachers, a lot of things.
Yeah. Now I want to share it. Now I'm in a place where okay.
So you feel like you've kind of gathered your energy back, and now you're ready to give again.
Yeah. I worked on the farm during the pandemic when there was no shows.
Yeah.
It was great.
That's
Got
awesome.
me back in my body, remember who I am without this big, epic thing. And then now I'm getting to a place where I feel, good about who I am again, around dignity,
You gonna
humility.
get back to touring? Is that what you?
I think that we will, going forward for Blind Café, I mean, last 2018-19, we started getting a lot of private events. We did Katy Perry's birthday party.
Oh yeah, I saw that on your website. Katy Perry.
I didn't even know who she was.
She's a celebrity.
Yeah, and I found out afterwards. But,
So you met her, right?
What's that?
You got to meet her?
Yeah. We did a concert for her and her bandmates and her hairstylist and her massage person and all that. 'Cause they were doing these two 10,000 person stadium shows.
Jeez.
And on Wednesday and Thursday, and her birthday was that Tuesday. We were in Chicago already, and they called us and wanted to do it.
Cool.
And we were doing it at this mall that closed at 9 p.m. And they asked us if we would open up the mall, just stay later so they could do it for her. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. I don't know who Katy Perry is, but this guy at the mall is not going to do that. And they're like, but we're Katy Perry. And I'm like, you're like, you don't know who that is? And I'm like, I'll call him and I'll ask. And I called him. And he's like, no, you're crazy. And they opened up the entire fucking mall for an extra 4 hours that night so she could have her show. And
it's cool that you didn't know who she was, so you weren't like starstruck.
It was a little weird. You know, security team came like a couple hours earlier and making sure everything's safe. And but yeah, she loved it. And I went out and got a cake.
Oh, cool.
And that's what I lit in the dark as a candle.
Oh, cool.
And everything else, it was cool. And,
yeah.
But you know, fuck Katy Perry. I mean, Katy Perry, awesome. Go for it. But really, the magic moments that that's happened over the years is nobody's seen. And it's the relationships between myself and the Master of Darkness and everybody who comes together to pull off a show. So going forward, we will probably build 3 or 4 teams that'll go do the private events, right? Which are super potent and amazing. And we do Columbine High School every year.
Oh, really?
We have a program with them. We're the final 2 hours. There's the senior high school experience, but I'll just do a tour and do some choice shows.
Yeah.
With all my best musicians and the team to fly out with.
Sounds like you have a good plan and you're getting ready to go.
And then I don't know. I know I'm supposed to pause more.
Pause more?
Yeah.
Like take more rest or breaks or.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that way you can cut things if you need to, or I don't know.
Yeah.
I want to learn how to be more articulate. There's a
You're
little
great.
more space.
It's interesting about the celebrity culture and how the best moments in the Blind Café, of course, no one is filming that or seeing that even, or
Yeah.
it's not what it's about.
Yeah.
That's a good message to share because we forget that all the time.
Yeah, Dango Rose from Elephant Revival, he's awesome, amazing friend. He plays in my band now. And he's actually working for the Blind Café lately. And he's like, let's get the big, the famous musicians in there and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, maybe, yeah, I can get some of them in there if they're cool and we can connect with them. But I'm like, Blind Café isn't we don't have to rely on some name.
Right.
Because there's something really beautiful and potent about being, I don't know, not anonymous, but just being in the dark and not having all that.
Not making it about a name or
Or
an
the
idea.
conceptual idea of something.
Yeah, we're back to the world of concepts, really. Yeah.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with me?
What do I want to do?
Yeah, I feel like we're supposed to help, or we're supposed to somehow bring people together to connect in physical form, some way. Yeah. And you can also say, no, I don't want to do anything with you, and then I'll say, thank you for taking care of yourself.
I'm open to the idea. I mean, this thing around building community, deepening relationships, bringing people together, that's been a passion of mine, and it feels at times like going against the stream or the grain because our culture is so individualistic, and so I've come to a place of just kind of accepting communities come together and communities go apart. People are born and people die.
Yeah.
You have a good friend and then maybe you drift apart, and that's okay, and that's a part of life. So I'm entering a new place where I'm no longer feeling like we have to make some huge big revolution and we're going to start an organic farm and create the perfect community. It's no, we're already in community, we're already here, we're already connecting, we're relating. People are listening, are feeling us and connecting with us. And how do we recognize the love that's already here and build on that?
Yeah.
And we don't need to reject things or rebel against things or try to reinvent the wheel. It's too much,
I like this.
Yeah.
I've been curious about you, and I know you're a fucking powerhouse in some way behind the
Try.
more quieter, non-annoying version of me. And I've always been man, Julian's, he knows something.
We've been talking about
something.
We've been talking about doing this podcast for a year or so.
Okay, yeah,
It's been a while. It's been a long time coming.
So I've just been curious about your experience around that. So it's great to hear that, because there's nothing stays.
I guess that's what's like
solid.
Yeah, nothing
solid.
solidified. I guess that's what's coming through me more and more at the moment. Of like, if you're like, I want more connection or I want more community, there's often like a belief or a sense that you don't have any connection or community.
And then maybe you need,
so,
if you
like,
build this farm or this version of this community, you'll have some sense of certainty that you won't.
Or if you want a romantic relationship, you don't have one, for example, whatever it is for you, but that sense of lack, it's not accurate, it's not true.
Yeah.
Like, we're already all connected. Like, let's start there.
We just got to create some magic moments for each other and appreciate those and watch them disappear.
Yeah.
That's it.
There you go. I like that.
Nothing's gonna stay. And it's I think that's a liberating thing for me, anyways. It has always been.
Well, it's been great having you on.
Yeah.
Maybe we should end it here.
Okay. Part 1.
Let's do it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. I'm gonna play one more song from Rosh called Halfway There. And as always, if you want to learn more about this podcast, check out thestateofmindpodcast.com. Check out our Patreon page and look at the show notes for more information and links. Find out more about my work as a therapist and meditation teacher at thestateofmindcounseling.org. Thank you so much. Here's the song, Halfway There, from Rosh.